This is a 2004 Porsche Boxster base with a 2.7 liter in it, also known as the Porsche 986. If you have a Porsche 986 with a driver or passenger side window that sounds like this, you're in luck, because today I'm going to show you how to fix this. Most YouTube channels tell you that when the window sounds like that your regulator is bad and that you have to replace the regulator. That's not true. What actually has happened is, if your case is the same as mine and probably 90-some% of most other Porsche owners, what has actually happened is a little piece of plastic that the cable rides through has broken off, and the cable has actually pulled it down into the reel. Now the good news is, if the cable's not too damaged from people still using the window like that over time, you should be able to disassemble the door enough to get to that reel, pull the plastic out, put it back together, and the window should operate normally without having to replace anything. The first thing we're going to do to get started is we're going to unhook the negative from the battery. Now the reason why we're going to do this is because on this generation of Porsche, the doors actually have airbags in them, and you want to make sure that you don't do anything to set that off while you're working. So to be safe, it's just good measure to unhook your battery. The battery is underneath this plastic piece, and you got to take these two plastic screws out to access the battery, and one on the other side. And it just lifts right off. These terminals are a 10mm, so get yourself a 10mm wrench and take the negative off. If you're wondering why mine has this extra wire here, this is actually a hookup for a trickle charger, if you're wondering what that was for. With the battery disconnected, we can now begin working on the door. Okay, now in order to take the door panel off, you gotta take a bunch of these plastic pieces off. You gotta take this piece off, this piece off, this piece off, and you have to access the screw that's inside there, a Phillips screw there. If you don't have one of these plastic car trim and clip removers, I highly recommend getting them. They're really not expensive. This one was like $10, and it's just nice to have something that you know is not gonna break or chew up your plastic pieces removing them. They're good if you need to access your stereo, pull trim off to get to your stereo and your dash, and they're just nice, handy to have, so I highly recommend getting one. Okay, now to get this piece off, what you have to do is you have to pull the bottom part out, but don't try to pull it all off, because there's a clip up here that sits like this, and you have to actually push this up to get that clip out without breaking it. So you just want to pull the bottom towards you like that, and then you want to push it up like that. See that clip right there? If you tried to pull it straight off, you would have broken that off. Now this one's a little tricky, because underneath, see if you can see it here, it actually kind of wraps around this handle, so you have to kind of pull it off and kind of snake it out like that in order to get it out from around this handle. So that's what we're gonna do. Get above it, see how much nicer it is with these tools. I don't have to worry about scratching my door panel up or anything. Kind of get my fingers behind it. I'm gonna pull it out. I'm actually gonna kind of pull it around the handle like that. See that? That right there, it kind of, see how it snakes around the handle? So you got to kind of pull it out like that. Next, we got to get to this little clip in here. Now the best way that I found to get to this, you can't really get into it from the top or the bottom. You kind of have to go in from the side, and you might need to get whatever tool you have in your kit that has the smallest tip to get down inside there and lift it up. See that right there? Pull that off. Like I said, you really ought to get one of these kits. Okay, now once you get all that off, you don't actually have to take these screws out, because we're not going to be going in there, but you need to get that plastic piece off because it's kind of in the way of the door panel. So those you don't have to touch, but you got to take this screw out, this screw out. These are both T30s, and then this is a Phillips head inside there. Now online they were saying that there was a hidden screw underneath here somewhere, but I do not see one anywhere, so it might have been an older model that there's a screw underneath here. Like I said, if you have an older model or even a newer one, it might be a little bit of a different configuration, but I don't think there's any screw underneath here. After you get those off, you got to pull the door panel apart from the bottom and then lift it off from the top. Let's get underneath of it here. Snap it off all the way around, and then lift it off from the top. Okay, did you see that? You pulled it apart from the bottom, pulled it apart from the bottom all the way up to the top, and then it actually lifts off the top. And once you have it apart, I don't know if you can see this or not, but you got to unhook these electrical wires, and you have to unhook the door latch right there. In order to get this off, you got to squeeze this, pull that plastic piece. Here's the part you actually got to squeeze. Okay, see that? You squeeze that, and that slides off, and then you snake that wire out. It's just like that. And then for these, you just unhook the electrical cables, pull that one off, and then pull the bottom one off. Okay, they just come off like there's no clips or anything. They just pull straight out. There's one more wire down here that is actually for your door light. Okay, if I spin it around here, see that? That's one more for your door light. You got to unhook that one. Okay, and I believe it just pops out. Set your door panel aside on a towel or something so it doesn't get all scratched up. Okay, so it looks like somebody's been inside my door before I owned this car. It looks like they cut through the moisture barrier here so that they could peer inside here and try to see what was making that noise, but obviously they just kind of gave up and probably put the door panel back on without fixing it. So the good news is it looks like they didn't disturb the airbag when they did it, but yeah, so they cut a hole in the moisture barrier, but they didn't actually fix it. That's awesome. So what we need to do is try to get inside here to get to the motor to see if we can get the pulley off. Unfortunately, this is glued on, and it's glued on pretty solid in my case because this car's 18 years old and it looks like this has never been off. Now in order to get behind this moisture barrier without having to cut it all up and everything, it's basically just glued, a bead of glue that goes the whole way around the perimeter. And so what you have to do is kind of try to get underneath of it at certain spots and try to just go along the bead and kind of gently pull the foam off of the bead without tearing it, and that will allow you access. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I am pulling this out, and I'm using a pair of wire cutters to just kind of cut away at the glue as I go, because it's not pulling off easily. I'm not cutting the foam, I'm not cutting the barrier, I'm cutting the glue underneath of it. I tried using a box cutter to try to cut along with the blade, but that didn't work at all. This stuff is pretty gooey, and you need something to actually cut through it with. But I gotta peel this off as much as I can to hopefully be able to pull this down to unbolt it, and then I'm gonna have to see if I can pull it around to this open area of the door here to see if I can repair it. So it looks like what I'm gonna have to do here is pull this side down a little bit further so I can pull this down enough to get to the motor. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the plastic perimeter piece off of this speaker in the door, which is just a matter of all these 6 Phillips head screws. I'm just going to take all those off, pop this off, unhook that wire right there, and then peel this on down some more. And this just comes off like this. Now with this off, you can now, let me show you here with the light, now you can get to the back side clip on this to get that wire out. This was kind of in the way, but with this taken off, now you can get to that and get that clip out of there. Okay, this thing here was actually a bit of a bugger to get off, so I'm gonna, with this out of the way, I'm gonna put it back on and show you how I did it, because I kind of did it off camera because it was a real pain in the butt. But basically, it has a clip on either side, you see that? And of course, the one in the back is the one that's really hard to get to. So what I had to do was get, again, my $10 tools, and I had to actually use the clips to pop them up because I just could not get my finger back in there. So I put one on one side, and I put one on the other side, and I just pushed them in and just lift both of those clips up, and it just popped right off. See that? It was a little bit of a bugger. Set that aside. And actually it's not glued around the speaker, so if you can just get the perimeter part down here a little ways, down around the door, you could pull it off this whole part. It looks like it's not tearing, but I got to be really careful. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just going along the bead of glue carefully, pulling at it, making sure that I don't tear the foam, and when I get to a spot of glue there that does not want to cooperate, I just cut the glue, not the foam, cut the glue with my wire cutters and just keep pulling. And that's basically what I'm doing as I go along. And it actually seems to be working quite well. And it's a slow going job, but if you're patient, it will be worth it in the end. We are almost to victory. I've got it this far around. I'm just continuing to go along the bottom here real gently. You can see it did tear on me a little bit right there, not too bad. Nothing that I can't glue or tape back together. I'm just going to keep pulling it a little bit further out here. I don't want to take it all off. I'm not going to do all the way up here. I'm just going to tear it off down here enough that I can kind of fold this up out of my way and just kind of tape it out of my way, do what I got to do, and then put it back on. Okay, I'm going to stop right here for now. I got it down to this bottom rightmost bolt hole here. I'm going to stop. I could keep going if I need to, but I'm going to try not to if I don't have to. So what you're going to do is get some masking tape or some painter's tape and just kind of tape this foam up out of the way so that we can get in here. Here you can see part of the regulator system here. The motor and the pulley or the main reel is right here. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take the speaker system out to get to it. I already took the two bolts out here on the front. There's a bolt here and a screw, actually a screw here and a screw here, a Phillips head screw. There's another screw right here. Let me get my light so you can see. There's another screw right there. And then there's a screw down there as well. Okay. With those four screws out, here, 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 and here, this all should just slide right out. It's pretty large. Now we're in business. So now this piece here underneath this frame, this where's the motor and the pulley are, that's what we're after. Now to get to that, you got to take these three bolts off. They are 10 millimeters. With those off, you just push it out. Okay. And just let it kind of fall. Now, you have to also unhook the power plug too. So get it down to where you can reach the power plug and take the power plug off for the motor. It looks like it is a release style clip. Yeah. So it just has those two clips on the side there. You see that? So you just got to pull those in and pull it out. Okay. So it looks like in order to get that plate off, to get to that piece of plastic that's stuck in there, I got to take the motor off and then take the plate off. But I'm afraid if I remove the motor from the reel, the window is basically just going to fall down into the door. So what I might have to do here is I might take a vice grip and reach up underneath here with my left hand. This is a rail here and there's a rail here. Spin this around so you can see. This rail and this rail, there are two clamps that clamp onto your window, and they ride up and down. They're cable driven by this, and they ride up and down those rails. So you can theoretically kind of lock the window in place if you can somehow clamp that rail so that the slider can't move. So what I'm going to try to do, just to make sure my glass doesn't fall, but I'm going to reach up underneath here with a vice grip. I'm going to try to clamp down on the rail right underneath of the window holder on this side, so that when I remove the motor from the pulley, the window does not fall and I don't lose my window position. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's clamped up in there. You see if I can, I don't know if I'll be able to show you with the camera what I did or not. Let's try. Alright, I don't know if you can see this or not. I'm just kind of sticking my camera in so you can look. Basically what I did was I just put a vice grip right underneath of that window slider, so that when I pull the motor off, it doesn't come crashing down into the door. Okay, now to get the motor off, those three screws, those three nuts you took off those screws, the 10 millimeters that were here, those three screws are themselves also screwed down into this plate, and they have a 13 millimeter hex on them so that you can remove them just like a screw. So you got to remove these two, and there's one up underneath there you got to get to as well. So what I'm probably going to do is align it so that I can get to the top one through this hole, do that one, and then do these two. And they should just thread the rest of the way out. Then pull the motor off. This is the scary part. Oop. Good news. The window did not come crashing down. So there's your motor, and you see it just has plastic. It has the plastic gear, plastic teeth on it, and those plastic teeth slide into those plastic teeth. But what we need to do is get to this side. But now that we got the motor off, this should be a piece of cake. So the only thing you gotta do to take this plate off is, I think, take that Torx out right there. You might have to also slide it out of here, which that looks interesting. But let me get this Torx off. Let me see what kind of Torx it is. It is a T25. So far I've only used a T25 and a T30. So you should be able to do this whole job with just a T30 and a T25. And a Phillips head, of course. Okay, so I pulled that screw out. I had to pull this green plastic piece off the top of this here, and you should be able to pull that bottom metal piece out of the bottom right there. It just slides out, and then pull this off, and voila, there is your issue. You see that? That piece of blue plastic right there? It's not supposed to be there. So what happens is it breaks off from a little plastic knob that's up here that you can't see out of the camera shot, and it actually gets pulled down into the reel. Now I got to figure out how to get that blue plastic piece out of there without damaging the cable, and that's going to be the tricky part. Okay, I got a brand new box cutter with a brand new Stanley blade in it, and I'm going to see if I can cut along this blue piece here and remove it without damaging the cable. So what I'm going to do is, mine's got a crack in it. I'm just following along that crack with the blade and just kind of cutting and prying it apart here. Good news is this plastic piece is pretty brittle, which is why it breaks off and gets stuck down in here in the first place. So I should hopefully be able to just split it the whole way up to the top. Okay, piece broke off. Okay, so I'm just getting up underneath with the blade, and I'm just pulling upward to try to get that blue plastic to crack or cut. It looks like it's starting to. All right. I need to reposition myself. Yep, this is going to take a while, so I need to get comfortable. This is not going so easily. I mean, it's coming, but it's coming slowly. I know I'm going to slice myself open by the end of this. Here's another piece. So basically I'm getting in there with a knife and a pair of wire cutters, and that seems to be doing the job. You basically just need to hack this thing to pieces and get it out of your reel, which is kind of what I'm doing. I'm basically just chewing it to pieces with the blade and with anything you can use. Basically, you just got to get the thing out of there. Just make sure you don't cut the cable when you're trying to cut the plastic, which is what I'm really trying to, where that went, which is what I'm trying to do. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. As you get to the top, the plastic piece gets smaller and gets tighter to the cable, so you have less room to try to get in there and cut without the cable being in your way. So you just got to be more careful, and you just got to be patient and make sure you get as much of this stuff that's ground up in there out of there as you can. So what I did here is I just put a piece of tape around this thing, because every time I break a piece off of this, it falls down in there and I have to dig it out. So I'm just put some tape up there to try to keep it, the pieces from falling down inside the thing. Haha. Oh, come on. Really? One little piece left. Why won't you come off of there? There we go. Finally. Success. The last piece. Now I get to clean up my debris here. But it looks like that plastic piece that got stuck down in here has kind of thrown where you see how there's grooves in this pulley here. were pathways where the cable was supposed to ride in, and it looks like the cable got all screwed up in here because of that plastic piece, so the cable was overlapping in some places, and it looks like these two cables are rubbing each other when it turns, and I think that might actually be causing the sound. So I'm going to try to pull this whole plastic piece here just kind of pulls out. I'm going to try to pull this out and see if I can figure out how to untangle that cable that's down in there. See that? It just comes out. Now, like I said, you'll notice that it's kind of jumped the track here a little bit. I'm hoping that I can try to resort this out and get it workable without having to replace the thing, which is what I'm going to attempt to do now. It looks like this piece on this side is supposed to be further over here so that these two don't interfere, and I'm thinking that's what it is. I think this top cable is supposed to be on this side of the pulley, and because it's over here, it's rubbing this one. Yeah, so this piece here has jumped track and has pushed these all one track over, and so now these two are touching when they're not supposed to. That's the whole issue. At least that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm banking on. So I'm just going to run my finger along the cable and move it back over to the track that it's supposed to be in all the way around. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I'm just kind of pushing it over to where it's supposed to be until I get to the end that I'm looking for. See how I'm just kind of moving it over to the proper position, which is where it's supposed to be, and I think it jumped track because of that plastic piece. I'm just going to keep doing that all the way around until I get up to where I'm at. Okay, next one down over. Okay, I might have to reset my window position slightly, we'll see. And there, now that one's in the track it's supposed to be, which is not this track, so hopefully they don't interfere with each other much anymore and they don't rub. At least that's what I'm hoping. You see that? See how before they were right up against each other, but now they have their own track, so they're not rubbing each other? I'm hoping that's what that noise was coming from. Put my cable back in, put this back on. Now to get this back on, there's a groove inside of there, and this just fits inside that groove, so you just got to kind of push it up against that spring and just kind of stick it on like that. Okay, you see that? It just goes inside that green piece. Hope you can see that, because I'm not doing it again. Alright, this is a bugger to get back in here. I don't really know the best way to explain to you how I did it, but basically, you get everything lined up like normal, cable and everything all lined up. I try to get the top part up here in first, and then try to hold it together, and then pull the bottom part down until I can fish, see that? Fish the metal part in, and then put it back together again. That's the that is the easiest way that I found to do that, but man, I had to fiddle with it for probably 20 minutes. Reinstall your screw. Okay, with that pack on, we're going to reinstall the motor, which is just putting it back on the same way it came off. Okay, you're going to want to line the plastic gear and the plastic teeth up to get it on so that these screw holes line up. Okay, so get them lined up, get your teeth lined up in the gear, get those lined up to the holes, and just push it back on. Now, reinstall the screws. Okay, now the easiest way that I've found to get this top screw in, after you get the bottom two in, the easiest way to get the top one in is to lift the unit up and utilize this hole here. It's in the frame. Just slide the screw all the way in through there, and then tighten it up through there with your socket. Before you put the motor back into position, if you used a clamp like I did to hold this up here, and I don't really know if the window would have fallen or not, maybe it wouldn't have, I didn't know if it would lose tension or not, but I just did that as a precaution. You want to make sure you reach up back there, of course, and remove it, because if you forget and put the door back together with it in there, you're going to have another problem. Removed my clamp. Put the motor back into position. Just slide it in and line the bolt holes up and push it on through. Before you tighten them screws back up, go ahead and reconnect the power connector. Then proceed to tighten down the unit. Okay, I'm going to take my tape off here. Before you put the rest of the door back together, you can reconnect your battery and test the window to see if it works. Okay, let's give it a test right here. You ready? Better. No more grinding noise. So that's what it was. The grinding noise wasn't so much the plastic piece itself, but the plastic piece had thrown the cables out of their tracks, and the cables were actually rubbing each other. When they would go up and down, they would rub the whole time, so I actually had to move the cable over into its right track so that the cables weren't scraping each other. That's actually what the noise was coming from. So now I'm going to unhook the battery and reassemble the whole rest of the door back to the way it was. Okay, so we tested it, it works. Now we're going to reassemble the door. Of course, the next thing to do, I'm going to take this back up out of my way again temporarily, and I am going to reinstall the speaker. Okay, slide the speaker unit back in. This piece here, adjust my camera here for you. This piece here goes behind the window regulator there. Slide it down in, and then flips up like that. Reinstall the screws. We're gonna put our cover back on like this. Just get it all kind of seated where it was. All right. We're gonna get our plastic piece here. We're going to put this plastic piece on. It's not symmetrical. It is different. It won't go on this way. It only goes on one way. Slide that on first, and then take your speaker wire and plug your speaker wire in, just like that, and screw this down. I bought some spray adhesive. I bought just some multi-purpose spray. It sticks to metal and fabric. I didn't get, most of what they had at the store was like the super hold, like Gorilla Glue stuff. It's ultra permanent, you know, and I don't want something like that. I want something that's just kind of a light to medium kind of stick, because, you know, this is still an old regulator and still the original motor, so there's still the potential that it could fail somewhere down the road and I might have to take all this back apart again to replace something. So I don't want something that's going to hold real tight. I just want something that's just going to kind of bond it to the metal and kind of keep it a little, you know, a little moisture tight, but not be impossible to remove without destroying the fabric. Okay, well, that seems to be holding it pretty decent. Again, it's not a super strong hold, but it's at least holding it to the frame and kind of making kind of an airtight seal, but it's not going to be so hard to remove that I'm not going to be able to get it back off again. Now we're going to reinstall the door panel. Okay, now before you put this on, of course, you got to reattach everything. So you've got to reattach the door latch, which is just this angle piece of wire, which you got to just feed through. I don't know if you can see this or not. Tilt my camera down. Okay, so you want to take this angle wire, angle it down in like that. There's a groove. This groove goes inside that housing. You put it down inside that groove. It's kind of hard to get down in. Down inside like that, and then you push it forward, and it clips in like that. Then you hook the electricals back up. The black one, in my car, the black one's on top, and the white one goes on the bottom. They just push in. Down here at the bottom, you gotta plug your light plug back in, which just pushes in. Okay, now, this is gonna be the hard part. I'm gonna try to show you this as best I can. But the lip of your door panel has to go inside this rail. See, this is a steel rail that runs along here, and this top of this door slides down into that groove. So you got to kind of get your door panel, the top, to go down inside that groove. Okay, see that? It just went down in. Okay, and then push the top of the door panel down. You got to get it centered and push it down in. Okay, all the way across. All right, and then you should be able to snap the bottom part of it in. There's little plastic plugs on here that go into those holes that you saw in the door frame. You got to get them lined up and then just smack them in. Same on this side. all the way across. Once you get your door panel all clipped back on with all the plastic clips, then you need to reinstall this T30, this T30, and this Phillips screw in there. So the longest T30 is the one that goes in the handle here. Now reinstall the plastics. Now on the clip here, it's not exactly symmetrical. It's kind of hard to show you, but the larger portion goes on top. It's also got a slanted cut on it. I don't know if you can see that. That slanted cut kind of follows the slant of the door here. It just clips on like that. And of course this one, again, I told you this piece kind of wraps around the door handle here. So you got to kind of wrap it around first and slide it up in. And that just clips on. And then this piece, lastly, this top clip here slides down into that slot first. And then it snaps on from below. There, like that. Reinstall the battery negative. Reinstall the plastic cover. Now the plastic cover, this piece here with these two little pieces on it, slides in that groove you see right there. So it slides in right there, and then flips down. Line up the little plastic, I don't know if they're screws, more like pegs or whatever, and just push them down in the hole. Now we're going to check to make sure our window position is still where it's always been. See if you can see that or not. Okay, so the position's not exactly quite right. So what I'm probably going to have to do is retrain the window. And I believe how you do that is push it all the way up until it's in the groove. And push it again and hold it, I think, for 15 seconds, I believe. Ready? Drum roll, please. Look at that. No annoying sound or anything. Okay, now one last test I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the soft top and make sure the window's lower like they're supposed to. About the correct amount. Yep. I'm going to relatch it, and they both go up. And we're done. Now it's sunny, 60 degrees outside on a February day, so I'm going for a ride.